last notes on Grace. I'm going to put Grace on the shelf for a little bit and let it stew. No reason to rush a script. Little notes to actors if he does accept. There's not going to really be any real fight sequences. Most of that's going to be seen from the point of view of Rainy Love from like the living room watching the television. There'll be ringside stuff, but there won't be real wrestling or anything like that. I'm not going in that direction. I only wrote that in for effect as part of this, almost like the scenery, to establish those two as fighters. But they mostly have man-to-man conversations in one sequence, and it's only there for effect. So it's not a fighting film. So we wouldn't really be wrestling or anything like that. Not even joking around. That'd all be done by stunt people and things like that. Now, another thing too is I'll be putting that on the shelf, and then when I get inspiration and I feel the time is right and I review some notes, I may be putting together Escape from Maine as another script lineup. So we could always just publish Grace and wait. I really would want Oldman to be a part of it, or at least look at it, or at least give me his opinion on it. I know he's busy. Gary Oldman, if he ever gets a hold of it. I am going to send it to Grim Life eventually. What I'll do is a trial final draft with maybe written lines for fight sequences and things like that. I'm talking about fight sequences with the werewolf. And in the end, I did come up with some other stuff. So I'll just give them that. They'll have an early copy, and that'll be kind of stored away at a post office, which is their postal box. Stored away in their postal box. And then at least they'll have a copy. I'll say a gift to Michael and Jessica. And then, they'll get the idea about the gothic vlogger stuff. Now I'll switch over to Escape from Maine probably and start crafting up something. I could have Escape from Maine pretty quick, even just going by memory. But I like to go through, if it's going to be an adaptation, which it looks like it probably will be, I'd like to go through and see what I want to pick and choose from the actual real novel that I wrote. So that'll be the next big step. But I don't want to get all Nicolas Cage adaptation, I just want to be simple about it and pick and choose what I think is the essential. It'll probably still have the well showing up at the door, Jonah in the well sequence at the beginning, and him going into the water gutter, the rain gutter, whatever you call those, street gutter, I guess the street gutters, and then arriving in Maine kind of thing, which may be in cartoon or something. And then, he gets in Maine, and then he gets into the book, writing the book. So we'll see, and we'll go for publication on that one too. The only two actors that I'm concerned with for Escape from Maine would be Woody Allen, if he would like to play Burt Chavez, or Larry David. Those are the two that I think of for the Burt Chavez role. Other than that, I'm up for just unknown actors, I know Johnny Whitworth he's a star, but I know that he gets good work and stuff. He's done some really good work. I don't know if I could get the script to him. I could for Escape from Maine and see what he thinks. If I wanted to direct only, or if I wanted to put myself in it, because I'd be playing a version of me at the age of almost 40. So I'm almost 50. So it'd be a 10-year stretch. But it's a big one. So it could be like a 2 or 3 hour movie set in Maine. So we'll have to see. That's a direction. A lot of people don't know a gem of an actor, Johnny Whitworth, who's worked with Francis Ford Coppola. He's worked with Bradley Cooper. I'm best friends. His brother is like one of my best friends. One of my best friends. I hate to say best friend on anything. Jesus is my best friend. Jesus Christ is my best friend. But Johnny, I'm surprised he's not iconic, as much. He is a star, but surprised he's not. This could be something for him, maybe. I don't know. Danny and I had worked together in college and written some stuff. We wrote a play, and this might be something I could get into his hands eventually. I might do like 200 pages, send it to Danny, see if Danny can shoot it over to Johnny and see what Johnny thinks. I don't know exactly when. I don't know why I didn't even think of him for Grace too, but probably because Grace was kind of silly. But I know Johnny takes serious work. I didn't get to see Her, and Her was something that he did. He played a character called Christian in it. I think that was the character's name. I know he was good in Limitless with Cooper. He played the dealer in Limitless, and he was also very good with Angela Jolie and Hell's Kitchen. That was another thing. So he's definitely on the radar for future work. It's weird how this is a circle. You know, it's like Bradley, Johnny, and Danny's his brother. It's just weird because, you know, you think of these massive billions of people out in the world, and then you've got these people that you think of when you're writing. I did think of, I have to be honest, when I was writing the book Escape from Maine, I did consider actors and stuff. I think I may have thought of Johnny a couple times, although honestly I did think of myself because it was a book. I was planning probably maybe one day to do screenplay, you know, to adapt it maybe, possibly, but I wanted to get down the factual things about what went on when I was in Maine. It was a factual kind of, and then I wanted to change the characters and play around with fiction. And then I fantasized the thing with Stephen King and finding him in the road naked with a moose and a hunting knife. And then me digging from one neighbor to another neighbor's, digging into Stephen King's, you know, his basement, if he had a basement, and doing the whole, you know, that's kind of intended to be a dream sequence anyway, where he steals the glass floor, one of the first books of Stephen King's publication that he keeps under his writing table. It's meant to be kind of a comedy. I felt that it probably was, you know, at the time, you know, when I was there. I remember going to a Walmart and sitting down, like waiting to get my hair cut. I might have to remember this for the script. And I had probably already written like 400 or 500 pages. I was eating all these power bars and these like protein bars. And I was waiting to get my hair cut, and it's like older gentlemen came around. It's like he knew I was writing the book. It's like Mainers are all telepathic, you know, like The Shining or something. And he kind of had a little grin on his face, you know, like, you're a writer, aren't you? You know, I had my glasses on, reading something, you know. I met this beautiful Presbyterian woman, and we both went to go see Silver Linings Playbook. That's whenever I was like, you know, this peer of mine could possibly get a nomination. Son of a gun. Get on this way. Anyway. And I went on a lot of dates and stuff. So those stuff will be in there. The you know, me surviving the divorce, you know, my first divorce will be in there. It's about recovering from divorce. I'd had children yet, though. You know, this is a state before I went off to have children. At the end of Escape from Maine, it ends with the birth of my firstborn. So it ends with birth. It starts in a divorce and ends in a birth. But I remember thinking when I was at the Walmart, I was like, this has got to be a comedy. You know, and I was kind of serious. I was trying to be Faulkner. And I was like, this is probably a very long joke that's going on for like 900 pages. And I was like, what? I was very worried in Maine about my future, if I was ever going to become a father. I was worried if I was ever going to get a family. And the book was kind of my comfort. It was a place I went to after the factory, you know, after play rehearsals. I'd go to this book and sit down and put things in. That will be there. Those things will be there. So the writer writing will be there. And it'll start probably in Parkman. It'll move to Guilford. There'll be the scenes between Stephen and I. That Stephen is a character, one of the characters. There'll be scenes between those. And then there will be me going to Dover Foxcroft, living in the attic-style apartment, and all that stuff will be there. There is a line I think Irene said to me, I think I picked up on it kind of telepathically, where she was talking to me. She was my landlord at the time. I've got to go. Irene at the time, who was my landlord, she had told me kind of something in a way that was odd, you know, and then maybe a look or something. I don't know if I didn't put it in the book. But we were talking in my kitchen because she was my landlord. She was this woman named Irene, and what's her name? Irene. pretty sure. My mom would know her name. She was a landlord of mine. Rita. Sorry, Rita. I messed it up. It wasn't Irene, it was Rita. Irene's a friend of my mom's. This was her Rita. It was my landlord, it was Rita. Sorry, I had to mix that up. Rita was her name. And I did not put this in the book, but it was almost like she said that I was kind of in the bloodline of Jesus, which we are because we're saved by the Lamb. A lot of it's religious. So it was kind of like she was saying, in a way, I was one of his children. You know, you're a child of Jesus, you know, in a way. When they usually say, you know, you're a child of God. But in my mind, it was coming off as if she was saying that. There was this whole thing about the Unitarian and Trinitarian church. That's a big deal in Escape from Maine. That I was struggling with the Unitarian or the Trinitarian, you know. The Pentecostal are known, I think, to be more Unitarian. I could be wrong. Where they think, or they believe that Jesus Christ is God, while the Trinitarian believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So there was these kinds of decisions that were going on, and I remember talking to Jer, who's in it, who was a real name Jeremy, and he was talking to me about, he was a born-again Christian that was once lost, and then he was found, and then he found Jesus, and he wanted to baptize me in the Pentecostal. So there is a scene in the movie and in the book of the Pentecostal church where I went trying to either allow the Spirit to get into me so that I could speak in tongues. And the only thing that came out of my mouth was hallelujah, while other people around me were really speaking in tongues. That really happened. So I experienced that. And, you know, I talked to some of the leaders of that church at the time, and they said there's nothing to fear. Not everyone is giving the gift. But some are giving the gift of interpretation, and some are given the gift of the tongue, the what they call the angel's tongue. So he said not to fear, because it doesn't make or break you with your relationship with Christ. It's just something that they do. I chose not to get baptized in that church, then went back home and got baptized in a Baptist church. But I did experience that, and Jared talked to me about Unitarian and Trinitarian. I don't think it's some kind of magic thing that you come across and it saves you, whether you believe in Trinitarian or Unitarian, as long as you know that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. But there's an argument, you know, Jesus is God, Jesus is the Son of God. They both agree. The Pentecostal will agree with that, both statements. They will say he's the Son of God. I believe they will say Jesus is God. For where I am, he is. Where he is, I am, he says, in the Bible, in the New Testament. So there is some things, theology, where he's trying to figure out those things. It's going to be a tough one for an actor. It's going to be a tough one, because this is a relationship between the person and God. The adventure I went on in Maine was an adventure to find Jesus. Is to be saved, to quit smoking, to throw away my childish things, and to become a man unto God, to become a godly man, and to be prepared for baptism, and to be prepared to be a father. So it is an important story, a testimony to be told. There's also a great sequence in it where I go to a neighbor who's a Vietnam vet. His name is Chris. He lived in Bert Chavet's old house, and I go there to quit smoking. And he talks to me and prays with me about how nicotine and cigarettes are of the darkness. It's of the darkness, and to be rid of that darkness, and to pray to go into the light and stay away from the darkness. So I had to pray, and the next day I woke up. Miraculously, I could not stand the smell of cigarettes. So there is a God. There's also possibly a sequence where I go and study Revelations. There was a church there in Dexter that was doing a seminar on the Revelations. My mom and I went. There's also probably some sequences in there where, this could be a series, but there's a sequence where there's an old lady or older lady that ran a theater. She ran the Wayside, also in the Lakeside. Her name was June Woodman, I think. It's Woodson. June Woodson. She was a writer, that talked to me about writing and how you can learn writing from other people and from just hearing about it. You don't have to necessarily study it or read it. You can just learn writing from talking to others. And she was the director of some plays and stuff like that. And there was another theater. We did Miracle on 34th Street, things like that. There is kind of a love sequence, a romantic sequence between a single mother that has 2 sons, but it's not anything intense. There was no major intense romance. I had to go find that when I came back to Texas. But I did have a relationship with God when I was there, a struggle that I went through with the flesh and the spirit. So it's that kind of thing. Escape from Maine. Yeah, Meryl Streep for sure, 100%. So Meryl Streep would be the mom character for sure. Larry David, possibly for Burt Shavitz or Woody Allen. A bit toss-up between the two. Bill Hader, 100% for Stephen King. The Stephen King dream sequence. That's what I'm sure on. I mean, if I get my way. Bill Hader would be so cool. A big-time autograph. Like run over there real quick. You know, Bill Hader would sign this immediately and then run off. Definitely. I'd rather get Stephen King's autograph, but that'd be harder to get. But Bill Hader might get it for me. Anyway, regardless, Bill Hader, Stephen King, 100%. Remember, it's only a dream sequence. I never met Stephen King. I've been outside his house. Oh, yeah, there's got to be a dream sequence also where I go and it's thundering outside. And I go through like a time warp. And boom, there's Stephen King's house. You know, I was hopped up on Monster energy drinks, or probably a low-cal Monster energy drink. I'm going through a thunderstorm, and all of a sudden I'm like right in front of Stephen King's house, which really happened. It really happened, and it was all a weird kind of parallel thing. And I'm really like, I was flipped out because it was like all this rain coming down in Maine. And I was driving, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm like right in front of Stephen King's house. We could really use his house. It would be cool. We'd have to get like a rain machine out there in front of his house. I'm sure Stephen King would be okay with it. At least for one night. And then we could all have dinner with Stephen King and eat cupcakes and talk about The Shining. Maybe even get Michael and Jessica there too as a documentary crew. Regardless, this would be a lot of fun. This would be a big project in the making. It's a 200-page script at least, possibly a series, but definitely a feature. It'd be nice if we could just, you know, smooth it off as a feature, you know, just kind of taper it off as a feature. Escape from Maine. Spike Jonze style kind of thing, you know. All right, man. All right. Creating the screenplay of Escape from Maine. Can we get a cute typist? Really cute typist, like mid-20s, you know, maybe from France that speaks English. She smokes just a little bit. Someone that's really good with English and can type, you know. It would be so, I mean, just get in touch with me immediately. Comment on me immediately. Bill Hader, work on that. Immediately, go find her. Go to France, Paris, France. 25, 26, green eyes, looks like Amelie. She's gonna be like a typist. Stat, you know. Like you'll fly to Texas to a small suburb near a naval base. You meet this psycho guy that drives a Kia. Wrote a masterpiece called Escape from Maine. Type for him now. I don't know. I guess maybe so. You know, golly, all I gotta do is dictate it. Or I mean, all I gotta do is say it, and she can dictate it or whatever they call it. You know, come on. You know, she's almost 50. We go back to the 1950s. They send me this, you know, this gay guy. Hi, my name's Susan. Yeah, right. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm here to type for you. You're a man. Susan, be a man. No, I'm just joking. Hi, my name's Amelie. I'm just joking. No, it's for real. Just trying to think of, throw Carrie in there. The other troop. Carrie can play like the mill. All right. The mill foreman. Because he had to work in a factory in Canada. Canadians get involved. They play like the mill foreman. So actually, the mill foreman's called the Bulldog in it, if you read it. He's known as the Bulldog because he was actually a Marine. I actually found out he was a Marine. He eat Chinese food in the in the eatery, you know, the little lunchroom, little tiny lunchroom. There's a lunchroom scene where all the women bring the food. That's got to be in there too. Then he comes over to me, since I'm the southerner, you know, that's stuck in Maine, takes his hat off. Cole, I need you to work the choppers upstairs. Can you do that? I had to change my hours. And I ended up working the choppers and going like half deaf. Wearing these like headphones. I didn't go half deaf, but it affected some hearing damage. It affected my hearing on my right ear because I got tinnitus from doing it, but it's tough. It's tough work. That's one thing they tell you have to sign a contract when you go in. You know, you could possibly get hearing loss. Factory. Now we're talking about the factory. Yes, the factory's in it. So the factory's very loud. So when the actors are, you know, talking to each other, they're not talking like this. They're screaming at each other throughout the scene. You know, there's like the scene where they're screaming over the factory. Think of, the only thing I can think of really when I think of those kinds of movies is Sally Fields and Norma Ray, that kind of thing. But yeah, the hearing is, the noise is extremely loud. So those scenes will be very interesting for the actors to deal with. I do not want to bring in those decimals of sound. I'd pull the plug on it all if they try to get too method. I'd want to use sound effects, and I want to be dead quiet when they're working, and no loud factory for the actors at all. No, we would use sound effects and things like that. I'm gonna get a shot of Fort Worth, but they could certainly pretend like it's loud, and they can wear the headphones and things like that, and the earplugs and headphones, but not real noise. They can hear it from the outside if they want to go through that kind of thing. It's very, very painful. First gets the job at Hardwood, also known as Havenwood. There is a sequence where he's laying down in the cabin and you can still hear the factory noise. You can hear it ringing in his head as he's laying there, and he's hearing the tinnitus, which I still hear today. It's like the thing I compare it to is if you watch Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks. Whenever that mortar shell goes off, and then there's the everything gets quiet, and then there's a ringing noise. That's tinnitus. That's what he was mimicking in Saving Private Ryan. That's why that movie's brilliant. But it's a noise that goes, and you can hear it in the ear, and it stays that way. It can make you break down. So this happens, and I have basically suffered from some of it. And they would test your hearing on site. So every 6 months or so, or whenever it came around, you would go in and your hearing would be tested, and they would tell you if there was hearing loss. These are serious factory workers. You know, I only did it for 15 months, and I got out immediately, as quick as I could. 15 months was a long time. These guys do it for 15 years. All of them end up getting surgery on their joints. Factory work is very serious work. A lot of times they suffer immensely because of it. A lot of them have health insurance. I had health insurance at the time when I did it, and they do reward you for being healthy. So if you when you're tested and you're tested as healthy, you do get bonuses and stuff. That was one of the things. So if you pass a health test, which they want you to be healthy, they actually give you bonuses for passing, like not smoking and being fit and things like that. Because a lot of them are. It's an interesting profession. It does bring in the mill worker big time. It gives honor to the mill worker. Now, we're not getting into all the union and all the protest and this is horrible. It is rough work, but people do this stuff every day. You know, all types of work is rough work. Even as an actor, there's things that people suffer because of their work. The mill work is extremely challenging. The women are very good at it. Their hands move very quickly because they memorize how to gather these pieces of wood. It's very interesting to watch some of the women work, how fast they can grab the coils and the wood and organize it, you know, and to package it, because they package and weigh everything. There's a lot of that mentioned in the book, the packaging and the weighing, and the packaging and the weighing, the green light and the red light balancing out and everything like that, so that the weight is perfect. And a lot of the boxes look kind of like Chinese food boxes. They're about that size, if you know what the size of a Chinese food book, but a little bit bigger, not that small, but enough to put in these little coil pieces of wood that are about the size of ear cubes. I guess not ear cubes, what do you call them? Q-tips, about the size of Q-tips. They're little wood coils. We worked with all different types of wood, cutting down wood, and the choppers would chop them up. They go onto a belt that would go onto a line of workers that would search for the wood that could possibly be rotten and not be seen. So we were sorters and packers of a lot of those types. The three major positions were sorting and packing, the choppers, and what is known as, I want to call it the scathe. I had to look this up the other day. It's basically the big guys, the guys that are muscular. They can pick up these huge pieces of wood. I never did it, but it was the biggest guys in the mill. They were paid $15 an hour. They could pick up this big piece of wood. It would be like a trunk-sized wood, and they would stick it in this thing that would rotate, spin the wood at a high speed. And a scathe, which I'm calling it a scathe, I could be wrong on the name, but it would go down and it would peel part of the wood off, almost like the size of like maybe toilet paper, and it would roll off into what's called a ribbon. And that ribbon would be placed onto a rolling pallet, and it would stack up to like 20 feet high sometimes. And you'd use spares and stuff, and that would go back into the choppers. I worked the choppers and I worked sorting, so I worked two different departments. My next step was to get built strong enough to handle, the actual wood going into the scathe is what I'm calling it for right now. Think of how have you ever seen how a baseball bat is made? It's the same kind of thing. Only this is how they make ribbons of wood. So it'd go in and it would spin around, and the blade would go down into it, cutting it into about that size, almost about a foot, and a ribbon would spin and make a ribbon of wood, which would be round like a steering wheel. That ribbon of wood, almost like a piece of toilet paper, but huge, would be stacked onto a pallet thing, and they would stack very, very high. It's part of the process.